So Western medicine does not have an approach to trauma because it doesn't even recognize it. The average medical student, you might find this hard to believe, but the average medical student doesn't hear a single lecture on trauma throughout their 4 or 5 years of undergraduate education. Nothing. Not one. Even though, from a clinical and from a proven scientific point of view, there's a huge link between childhood trauma and adult mental and physical illness. So for example, a Canadian study showed that men who were sexually abused as children have 3 times the risk of heart attacks than men to whom it didn't happen, not because they smoked or drank, but just because of the trauma. Because the trauma actually causes inflammation in the body, amongst other things. Many studies have shown a relationship between childhood trauma and autoimmune disease, childhood trauma and cancer, or trauma and cancer. A study 3 years ago, published in a major medical journal, showed that women who suffered PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, severely, they had double the risk of ovarian cancer, which means that what happens emotionally has a significant impact physiologically. And what's frustrating about it is that these studies are published over and over again in scientific journals, but most physicians are not aware of them. So if you go to a specialist with your rheumatoid condition or your malignancy or your asthma or your skin inflammation or your neurological disease like multiple sclerosis, or your joints are swollen and inflamed, they will deal with the biology, but they don't recognize that the biology is connected with the psychology, and that very often that's connected to, for example, multiple sclerosis. Well, let me tell you a story. The first person who described multiple sclerosis was a French neurologist called Jean-Marie Charcot in the 1800s, middle to late 19th century. And he said that this disease is caused by long-term grief and stress. He said that. He saw it. Now, since he made that statement 150 years ago or so, there have been multiple studies showing the relationship between childhood trauma, long-term stress, and multiple sclerosis. But the average person goes to a neurologist with a flare-up of their multiple sclerosis, all they get is medication. Nobody asks them to look at the stress that may be causing the flare-ups. So scientifically, the unity of mind and body has been established for a long time now in research, thousands of research papers showing their relationships, and the average physician is completely unaware. That's the nature of the medical ideology. It's brilliant, it can do amazing things in certain areas, but when it comes to chronic illness and looking at the connection between the individual and the environment and the mind and the body, there's almost complete blindness and deafness. So that's how it works. And it's very frustrating because if we saw these connections, there's so much more, if you saw these scientific connections, there's so much more we could do for people. There's so much more we could do. So I've been writing about these things for about 20, 25 years. There's much more interest in my work now than there was 10, 15 years ago, including on the part of many doctors. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk on trauma. He's an American psychiatrist. It's a big international bestseller. That's a sign of something. So I think it is changing. And more people are recognizing it, including more and more physicians. But institutionally, it hasn't happened. Institutionally, I think it's going to take a long time because the medical profession is a very conservative profession. It wants to maintain things as they are, or it wants to keep the changes within certain predictable or acceptable channels. And to go into this broader, holistic, scientifically holistic perspective is to actually demand that people completely change how they understand illness and health. People are difficult to shift that way. And also, let me tell you, medical education is very traumatizing for a lot of people. And the people that go into it are like me, they're very driven people, just determined to do it no matter what. So we put ourselves through this very difficult training. We are already kind of driven to succeed. And nobody tells us to look at ourselves. And so we don't have the eyes to see. And I can tell you studies that have shown that when you look at certain biological markers of aging and stress, if you compare medical students to other people their age, they age quicker. Their chromosomes suffer damage more than other people their age as a result of medical training. So these are the people that I can understand that. I've been like that myself. So there's lots of there's one more thing. You know, we're talking in Basel right now. Isn't this where Hoffmann La Roche is based, the pharmaceutical company? Well, much of the research that reaches the eyes of doctors is funded by who? The people that make a profit. Who makes a profit? The people that sell pills, the pharmaceutical companies. Now, there's no profit. There's no pill for trauma. There's no pill for self-examination, for self-inquiry. But you can sell a lot of pills by dealing with symptoms. So the research is mostly funded by people who profit from not looking at the deeper issues. And that's the information that a lot of doctors read. So there's all kinds of strong reasons why, as a profession, physicians are unaware. No, there are individuals, many individuals in the medical professions who, like me, they start asking questions and they start seeing things that they were not told about in medical school. But as an institution, it's a very conservative and resistant and defended profession. In the medical model, I'm the doctor, I'm the expert, and I'm going to fix you. So I have all the power. But healing happens inside a person. So healing is a capacity of all organisms, plants, animals, human beings. It's an innate quality of the organism. I can help the healing, but the healing has to happen within the person, which means that the individual needs to take agency, what I call agency, needs to take responsibility and power over the decisions. Whether they accept medical treatment, whether they don't, they're the ones that need to decide consciously, not passively, but actively. There's great medical treatments around, but don't receive them passively. Choose them actively. Consider everything. And a lot of doctors actually are threatened, or they perceive themselves as threatened when the patient starts asking questions. You talk to a lot of people who go to doctors. Sometimes the doctors are great and very patient, but very often they get irritated and defensive when you question what they're telling you, because they perceive it as a loss of power. And yet, the healing is an inherent quality of every organism. So people who are suffering with any condition, whether it's mental health or physical health, or just dysfunction in their personal lives, if they recognize that they have the power, and if the healers can help people recognize that they have the power, that's great. So if anybody's listening, to all those who are listening, I'm telling you, it's within yourself. You can ask for help and receive all the help that you think is necessary. That's great. But don't give up the power. It's yours.